in a GRM program, we are to train the global leaders. And also, we would like to work together with various good schools and also companies for internship in Japan and abroad. As they mentioned in January, the oil-related facility in Algeria was attacked by terrorists, and today the security of personnel around the world is so important. In Algerian case, Mr. Uemura of Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been deeply engaged, and he's going to discuss the global leaders and also the security and the safety in other countries.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. I am Director General of the Consular Affairs Bureau of MOFA. My name is Uemura. So I look like a brother to Professor Naito, don't I? But we are from the same class. And 30 years ago, I majored or I studied Arabic, and I was in Syria studying Arabic, and it was at the same time when, as assistant of University of Tokyo, Professor Naito was on his field work in Syria, and I recall having traveled on with a almost wrecked car altogether to go around the village, and so we have shared the same kind of experience. Now, in 30 years, we look alike even. So perhaps we are more related with each other. So 30 years ago, we studied in a very under a very severe situation, an environment. But looking over the past 30 years, or even the past 10 years in particular, I think the situation in the world has changed dramatically. Syria and Turkey, where we used to be able to travel quite casually, are now in the midst of turmoil and the civil war and terrorism. I specialize in the Arabic language, and also I have been overseeing issues related to terrorism. I serve as Director General of the Consular Affairs Bureau, and we take care of the visa, and also we provide travel information to the Japanese nationals, and also we try to take care of the Japanese nationals who are living and traveling abroad. So I hope that by listening to me, I hope to give you some idea as to how you can protect yourselves more safely. I have provided a sheet of outline of my talk, and I think you have in your handout a copy of the PowerPoint slides that I will be using. So let me start out by speaking about what sort of travel information, safety-related information the Japanese government is providing to the Japanese nationals. And the question as to whether all the necessary information can be obtained by everyone is another question. Even if we post things on the web, if people cannot have access to such information, they will not be useful. So there may be a challenge there. And thirdly, if in case of emergency something happens, what would the Japanese government be able to do? And finally, I would like to talk about some tips and hints as to how to get around in difficult and dangerous areas, speaking from our own experiences, that is, myself and Professor Naito's. Now, first of all, what the sort of information does Ministry of Foreign Affairs provide to Japanese nationals? If you could access the website of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you will find a site on the travel information, and there will be the global map, and also the most recent topics will come out on the right-hand side, and you will pick the region. So if you want to travel to Syria, you will click the Middle East and Syria. So the kind of travel information that Ministry of Foreign Affairs provides are categorized. So please keep this in your mind. So first of all, there is travel advice and warnings highlighting the most dangerous and risky regions. It is colored in red and yellow, showing the degree of danger. And second is spot information. So spot, so highlighting specific areas, as we saw in Algeria the other day, we had a tragic incident. So the armed forces active in Algeria will be provided as such spot information regarding Algeria. Travel advice and warning will include all sorts of information regarding intelligence issues, information as well. All in all, to provide the evaluation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from a holistic standpoint. Spot information is more up to date. What is going to happen tomorrow? Or the general election is going to be held soon. These are the kind of information that is considered as spot information. Next is region-wide information, which deals with the matters that spreads over many countries, like the bird flu or SARS epidemic, maybe another example. Or in case of Islamic countries, the Islamic religion tends to span different countries. If a satiric a picture was of Muhammad was carried in a Western magazine, for instance, anything could happen in any country where Muslims may reside. And therefore, the second and third, that is, the spot and region-wide information, tends to cover the short-term based information, and travel advice and information, travel advice and warning is more wide and long in terms of the coverage of the situation, and therefore you would start clicking into the travel advice and warning first of all, and check as to whether there are any region-wide information or spot information that may of concern to you, and then make the decision to travel. That is the ideal. And fourth, the basic data for safety measures and outline of terrorism risks. These are the basic data related to the country in concern about the Islamic sects and breakdown and customs or practices that you should avoid interfering with when you go to that specific country. So those are some tips for you to travel. So 10 JGC employees lost their lives in Algeria in January in the tragic incident. So if you look at Algeria, you will be able to see the coloring. So it's yellow, orange, and red ultimately. So darker the color, there is greater danger. So this is the situation regarding travel caution or advice and warning in Algeria. This is a case of spot information. Once again, taking from Algeria, this was after the incident in 2 weeks' time, issued on January the 29th. In Amenas, Algeria, when after the incident took place, of course, we would deal with that incident, but we were more concerned about the possible second and third round of attacks. And in the northern part of Algeria, the gas pipeline was attacked, and this has raised the level of alert on our part, and therefore we try to pinpoint to that incident with the spot information. Then what about the region-wide information? Once again, related to Algeria. The Algerian incident in Amenas took place on January 16th, but this was issued on January 15th, and the spot information issued on that day, one day prior, was calling for attention to the fact that in Mali, French forces and other African countries' forces were intervening, and therefore, as point number 3, it says that, therefore, those of you who are traveling to France or Islamic countries, please take care because we want you to be alerted about this fact. And we, of course, had no information regarding the attack in Amenas on the following day. And the Western countries' intelligence also did not have the information. But all in all, the crisis level was being heightened. But the question is whether or not such information was shared in all the different countries of Islamic countries and the residents there. We are trying to analyze the degree as to how much this information had been accessed to by the residents. But as young researchers, I would hope you would keep this in mind, that you are able to obtain such information before you travel. As for basic data for safety measures, you would be reminded as to whether or not you would require a visa or what are the immigration procedures. And also regarding the terrorism outline, you would find out information regarding terrorism in the past year or so. And this is provided for 205 countries and regions. Then how can you get hold of this information? You have to be registered in order to get the information.
You have to provide overseas residential registration, and what this is that when you go back home, please check your passport at the very last page of your passport or penultimate page. This is what you find. It's in very small letters. Sometimes when you forgot to read the insurance policy, you are in trouble. It's the same thing. On the very last page of the passport, it refers to the article number 16 of passport law. If you are to travel overseas for more than 3 months with this passport, you must submit overseas residential registration to the embassy or to the consul general. This is a must. There's no penalty, but some people know, some people don't know. What's the benefit of submitting this registration? First of all, embassy will have a real-time information of where the Japanese people are. It's important, particularly for emergency. If you do not know whether or not there is a Japanese in a particular region, there's no way we can give support. You can submit this registration online or in paper. In many cases, you need to register your telephone number and mail address. Furthermore, Through the email, you will be able to get the state-of-the-art information from the embassy or from consulate general. You may not be in the capital, you may be in the rural area. Sometimes you may not have good web connection. We also can provide a short mail service. So if you are renting a mobile telephone locally, then you can get a short message from the embassy. So when you register for the residential of overseas residential registration and website, please make sure that you are registered. So if you know that there's a demonstration or rally being planned the following day, as a researcher, you may not know this kind of information, but you can get this information from the embassy. Appropriate information on any safety related matters will be given to you. But you have to make sure that you read this, and whenever the information is revised, we have this system that we provide on an up-to-date manner. We first ask all the Japanese to apply for the registration and for the website. Depending on which Japanese embassy you're talking about, we have different format and it's rather difficult. So we are trying to improve this, particularly because of the aftermath of the Algeria incident. Ministry is trying to improve this. In 1 year from now, we will be having even a better system and user-friendly system. So I hope that you would be a user. So I talked about the website so far, and now I have prepared a brochure included in the handout about what service we can provide to the Japanese people overseas. When you have an incident or accident overseas, you may have different situations, like in case of Nikki, people were took as a hostage in this international terrorist attack, or you may have a warfare or accident, a traffic accident or theft. Of course, there are things we can do and we cannot. Like if you run out of money, even if you ask for a borrowing of money, we cannot do that. You have to ask your relatives home. We can help you communicate, but we cannot rent you 100,000 or 200,000 just because you run out of money and then you can't pay the rent. But if you are involved in an accident, if you lose a passport, we do our best in giving support to you. Unfortunately, we may not have enough staff in some places. Sometimes just a single ministry staff has to take care of several thousand or several tens of thousands travelers and Japanese residents. And we only have 7 or 8 embassy members, or in the larger cases, we have tens, 100. But in any case, there are certain limitations as to what we can do. So if you consult with us, ask for advice, we will do our best. So please refer to this brochure. For the remaining 10 minutes, I'd like to share with you some of my own personal views and my experience. Young researchers, when they go to disrupted nations, some countries in Middle East or some in Africa, when you carry out a field study, I think many of you may want to go to these countries. Here we are in Kyoto. I came from Tokyo. I took subway. You have no sense of danger because of the security in the society, and in case of emergency, we have good support system for the police, the hospital, and medical care. Suppose the Japanese level of security is this much. We believe Japan is one of the best or the second to best in terms of the level of security in the society. But depending on where you go in the country, you go the intervention by law enforcement or Medicare or medical support, sometimes the level is this low. The question is how much aware you are of the gap and how are you going to fill that gap. I've been to Syria, Egypt, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. Right after the war in Iraq, I was there. There are Japanese people dying, and I was there locally. And what I heard was that in a certain country, a Japanese journalist was attacked and died, and we had to recover the body. We had to have an autopsy and send the body back to the family. Some families were very critical. Why was it that Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs don't send the Japanese police to have an on-site investigation to identify the murderer and put him to justice? Why is it that the Japanese government or embassy doesn't do anything? That was a very strong, harsh words that we heard from the families. We try to give answers as much as we can. The Japanese system and is different from the system locally. That's what we have to understand. And the law enforcement personnel cannot go to other country to interrogate the suspects. For example, the researcher cannot enjoy the same level of service that you enjoy in Japan when they go elsewhere. Japanese police, if they go to the local country, they are not allowed to interrogate and arrest the suspect. However, the victims and the families, I understand how they feel. But in real world, here in Japan, we have a very well organized social infrastructure, the medical infrastructure, and the security infrastructure, and we are one of the best in the world. 30 years ago, with Dr. Naito, when we were in Syria, he went to a local village. I followed him. We didn't have any bodyguard. We were wearing a t-shirt and jeans. We talked with the villagers with the local language. We didn't fear anything.
今までいう日本のその社会インフラ、治安インフラがそれぐらいとして、
Even if the Japanese social infra was this, and in those days the serious level was this low, but we didn't see any problem. I'm not asking you to do the same. The reason why we didn't face any problem is mentioned on my summary paper.
そのネットワークを作らせる。
That is, you have to have a good network with the local people.
二つ目は、例えば医学
And the
の
second point is that
研究者の方はそれぞれ
even
の
if
国
you
の
are
事情、その社会
scientists and researchers,
宗
you
教
need
的
to
な
know the society, the local society, the religious
心の支配、
taboo,
こういったものを利用して
the mental aspects of the local
入る
people.
んですね。
You have to get that
これが
information
なかっ
before you
た
go
ら
to the field.
どういうことが起こるか。
Otherwise, what
これは欧
happens
米の大使
is
館とか
that
こういう研究機関が危ないところに出た時にやってですね、
what the
こういう法律
Western embassies
それがないと
do,
ころに施設を作っ
that
て
they will
鉄道
create a
とかも
fortress
誰もその屋根裏
away,
にしてそこにいるというような
and they
形で
stay
排除す
in
る
the
わけですね。
area with the barbed
同じな
wire
らば
so that
社
no
会
one will
治安
come
イン
to
フラが
attack
これぐ
you.
らいのものをその
If
移植するわけにいかない
you
と。
cannot transplant the
で
high
一
level
時
of
これぐらいのも
security
のを持って同じようなのが出るっていう
to
のを
the
説明
country
する。
that
これ
you
す
are
ごく大
working
変です。
on,
けど
so
日
you
本
can
人は
form a
それぐ
fortress
らいのもの
to
を
protect
やって
yourself.
いけるわけです。
But the Japanese people have an advantage of that not being necessary. I can't go into details, but that is our reputation as a Japanese that our ancestors have built in the world, the diligence and the integrity and the Japanese people's value of not intervening with armed forces in any issues. I cannot go into details of this, but you should get into the local network. That I think is the keyword. The second point is that you have to take time and patience to be contacted with the local embassy or consul general and to the local Japanese society. If you know such and such village is the fieldwork site of Doshisha researcher, if the local Japanese society knows that, that will enhance the level of your safety. And finally, I'm not from the insurance company, but there's something very convenient to use. The overseas travel accident insurance is well developed. An important aspect of that policy relates to the transportation cost. There are some bottlenecks, like if you are heavily injured, they have a very low level of medical infrastructure. If you are heavily injured, you have to be transported to a larger city with a better medical facility. If you use a private jet, if you are transported from Middle East to Japan, it costs you 30 million yen. You have to pay 30 million in exchange of your life. Of course, you have to pay for that, but individually, that's not difficult. And this overseas travel accident insurance policy covers for that transportation. So, if researchers go to some places, I think you should also think about this when you go to other ordinary countries in Asia. If you have a plan to do some research in any country, please consider about this overseas travel accident insurance that also covers for the transportation cost. That's my advice. I think I used up my time. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them at some point. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very practical talk, and we have learned very important tips. Next.